Here we go.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Puss-face little pimpstick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Welcome back to the show. So Philip is joining us, and Johnny Million's beloved wife, Mrs. Million, gave us the idea that we should wear our Vishivankas, the Ukrainian
she's looking
shirts.
at the headlines.
That's right.
Looks good.
That's right. That Philip brought us all the way from Ukraine. He is back in Kiev right now. We can tell by his picture of Saint Olga of the gladiator class. And so much to talk about.
To talk about. And I know this is not good for radio, but those who are with me now, ask me, Hal, where this came from.
Where'd the
There's
watermelon
lovely
come from?
slice of juicy watermelon.
I'm wincing every time you think
came from Kherson.
That's beautiful. Kherson watermelon.
It is from Kherson. It is Kherson. Now I posted earlier today that I had bought this thing at my local market, and I had bought it, and I told the woman who was selling me the watermelon, I said, where's this from? She says, from Kherson. I said, oh, really? So soon? And she said, well, no, it's kind of not really in the city. And I said, well, I'm doing it because I'm going to do a show tonight, and I'm going to show everybody that, that Kherson is Ukrainian again, and we're having Khersonian watermelon, which is kind of like what oranges are to Florida, or like maybe avocados are avocados to California, pineapples are to Hawaii. Kherson prides itself in its watermelon. And when they heard that I was doing this, and that this silly foreigner was aware of the importance of watermelon, the market, Bessarabsky Market, which is nearby here, erupted into applause.
Nice.
Which was very adorable. Yeah, it was incredibly cute. It was very, very cute. But there it is. There it is.
If only they knew that you were going to eat watermelon with two guys in America wearing Vishivankas who have been...
Vishivankas, I know.
The same day that Gallagher died.
Yes, that's true.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
no, he died yesterday. Yes, and watermelon.
Okay.
Yes, he got the watermelon on the same day. There's something going on there. Absolutely. I think it was a Russian plot.
Yeah.
By the way, yes, it's Harry Styles' favorite melon. Is that what everybody says I look like in this shirt? Okay. So lots going on. Okay, let's start with
let's get into it.
Yeah. So one of the things earlier this year when the big first lightning rush across the reclaimed Kharkiv territory was just people, the little maps of it just going, oh my God, in the last 72 hours, look at all the territory they have claimed. How is that even possible? And the very same people, I don't know why, seem to be equally surprised at what's happening in Kherson right now. And the map looks exactly the same. It is just boom, 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 just rushing into the edge of the Dnipro River. Now, catch us up on what you're hearing there, and then from the Telegram channels that I'm following. Yes, right.
There's a whole bunch. Let's go with what's happening today. We know that Ukrainian forces are in Kherson city proper, that the Ukrainian flag is flying over the mayor's building. We know that people are celebrating in the streets. I mean, the video that we're seeing coming out of there of the people of Kherson coming out in waving the Ukrainian flag, singing the Ukrainian anthem, embracing the soldiers that are coming into Kherson. This is less than 45 days after Vladimir Putin said that they had a free and fair referendum in which the people of Kherson decided to join with the Russian Federation. Baloney. So we have all that happening. We have Russians retreating across the river and blowing the bridges behind them. We have them leaving heavy machinery, all sorts of stuff, tanks, armored personnel carriers, helicopters. warehouses filled with ammunition. Why they didn't blow these things up, I have no idea. Probably because they were in such a rush to get out of there. But it's all fallen apart for them in Kherson, and you cannot have a discussion about Kherson, and we'll go into the minutia of it, but I have to mention from the very, very start, because I was in Kharkiv last week, and I talked to them about how they resisted against the initial Russian onslaught during the invasion period in February into March and April.
Right.
And I talked about to them in Kharkiv about how they did it, and now to see it happening in Kherson, it's just amazing. But what happened in both Kharkiv and Kherson is that the Russians had planted people inside the city to help in the overthrow in the initial invasion force. It worked in Kherson. They immediately replaced the mayor. They immediately replaced the head of the local police. A lot of them escaped and have now come back today. Now, when Ukraine is coming back in, but Kherson was won by subterfuge. It was not won by force of arms. They tried to do the same thing in Kharkiv, and the residents of Kharkiv found these guys and arrested them. Okay, so before they could overthrow in the initial stage, the first 3 days of the war, they started finding people and going, you're not really a local. Where did you come from? You seem lost. You don't know the way around here. Let me see your papers, sort of thing. What's your identification? And they found these infiltrators, and so they weren't able to do what they did in Kherson in Kharkiv, and so there was an armed resistance in Kharkiv, and there was nobody to kind of sow division and like, oh, I'm in charge now. The Russians are coming in, and I'm the mayor of Kharkiv now. That didn't work because the residents of Kharkiv found them and brushed them out and broomed them out. It happened. It worked in Kherson. So why am I telling you all this? I'm telling you all this because they didn't beat the people of Kherson. The people of Kherson actually put up a resistance, and we saw a video coming out of them singing the Ukrainian national anthem with Russian occupied. This is where, you remember at the very beginning, there was the grandmother with the sunflower seeds?
Yes, right.
Throwing them, here, put these in your pocket so that when you die, the sunflowers
you'll fertilize them
from your graves.
Yeah.
Right. That was this region. That was Kherson Oblast. So, they didn't win in Kherson. They sneakily overthrew things there. So now we're seeing Ukrainians march back into Kherson, a place that Putin says just voted to join the Russian Federation, and the atmosphere and the mood. Well, I mean, if you haven't seen it by now, just take a quick second at some point after the podcast, after our radio show, and go take a look. That's genuine relief and an outpouring of love and affection for these soldiers who have come and liberated. I mean, it's fall of Paris, sort of like people coming out with roses and food, and it's genuine joy of liberation.
We were looking at footage of some of this, and where like people were coming up, farmers and other people, and these people aren't dressed all that different from how they would have dressed in the 40s, and but for the modern weapons and the modern helmets and the modern vehicles themselves, the scene is almost exactly the same as any liberated territory in a previous world war or something. It's amazing to watch that these people are, and they're like grasping at the hands of these soldiers. It's beautiful to see. That has been amazing.
I just saw within the last hour, and there's so much to talk about, so I want to kind of get through as much as we possibly can. But in the last hour, the I follow on social media and on their feed Operational Group South, which is based in Odessa, but they're the ones that actually were in charge of the spearhead into Kherson, and the head of that operational center, that division of the Ukrainian military, is a guy by the name of Major General Kavalchuk, and they have just released video of him walking onto the main square in Kherson, and it is. I mean, I get worked out. I get emotional just thinking about it now, because he walks onto the square, and this woman comes up to him. And she says to him, and obviously they've edited this, but she comes up to him and she says, in Russian, she says, because Kherson's predominantly Russian speaking, she says, "We knew you were coming. We were waiting for you. We knew that if you needed more time, we could have waited longer for you, but we knew you were coming, and thank you for coming. And the general response in what I'm almost 90%, 99% sure is Ukrainian, which just shows you the makeup of this country. And he says, it's that belief. It's because we knew you believed in us, and we knew you were holding out hope for us to come. That kept us, that brought us here. And it's just, it's really powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And we hear now on the other side, we see the Russians going crazy. We even hear
hold that thought because we got to take a break.
Let's talk on the other side.
Yeah, on the other side of the break.
I'll have another bite of watermelon.
That's a great idea. And we'll talk about how the Russians are taking their own collapsing strategy, which there were 2 red waves that failed to be in the same week. We'll be back. It's the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, with our dear friend Philip Ittner live from Kiev, eating watermelon, while Johnny Million and I wear our Vishivankas in celebration of what's going on in Kherson right now. We'll be back right after this.
Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m.
You're
listening to House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I thought there was going to be like a new one every break. I was so excited.
You want more, Hal? We'll give you more. House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820. Hoo-yah!
So lots going on, too, that we'll check in on. Philip Ittner's with us live from Ukraine, and Johnny Million is farming questions from our chat room for him in a moment. But there are a couple of things that are just breaking right now, which is one is there are bombs or at least missile attacks going on in Zaporizhia, where the nuclear facility is right now. The Russians are basically using what munitions they have there to scare everybody that they're going to create another Chernobyl if you come any closer, that kind of stuff. And it's not going to work, but that's what's happening. And Olaf Scholz, the German chancellor, has put forward a new line of sanctions, both from Germany itself and the EU in general, that they're proposing against Iran for supplying material support to Russia, which is a good sign because, again, the Germans were dragging their feet more than almost anybody else. Now you've got 100, basically everyone's natural gas stores are almost at 100%. They're like 97% still, and it's a mild winter so far. And if they can just keep at this so far, but even if it's, the longer this goes, the less they need to draw their stores out over time. Because, again, you can only make the room so hot, so you can only burn so much even at the coldest. So if it stays relatively mild comparatively going into the fall, and I have a question about the weather there that is, to quote Tears for Fears.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I wanted to be with you alone and talk about the weather. Right.
The weather.
Right.
We've had 2 air raid sirens today. We lost power for about 3-4 hours at one point. These are the repercussions of what's happening. But I can tell you, on the streets of Kiev today, it's a Saturday and people were out, but even on a normal Saturday, I've been here now for 9 months, today was special. Today people were really out and really happy and celebrating. And so the power went out. Okay. So the alarm, the air raid siren sounded. Okay. We have Kherson back. And it's a massive morale boost for the Ukrainians. It cannot be overstated how incredibly important this is. This was the only provincial capital that that the Russians were able to actually occupy, and now they've run away like scared little dogs with their tails.
And aren't they just like hiding in amongst the citizens?
And they're also hiding amongst the citizenry. They've taken off their uniform. They're in civilian clothes. They're being captured. But many of them have already been captured. I have no doubt that there will continue to be investigations. If you did not live in Kherson a year ago, people are going to want to know what the deal is. What you doing? Where'd you come from?
Hey,
but
buddy.
The morale boost. the morale boost here has been palpable. You can feel it on the streets. There's a real sense that this is a chapter, a new chapter in the war, and not least of which, gaining territory means the closer you get to some, Ukrainian targets or Crimean targets, they are now they're very much dangerously close to Ukrainian artillery. They could, if you look, and I had a conversation with a friend of mine who is a military expert here on the ground in Ukraine, and if you look at it, there are the territory that they have gained is just in HIMARS distance. They can hit Crimea. They can hit what is territorially Crimea right now if they wanted to, from using a HIMARS if they want. They can't hit the naval base. They can't hit Sebastopol. They can't hit much of the population centers in Crimea, but they can hit Crimea. And that symbolically, I think, is going to be hugely significant when they eventually inevitably start lobbing stuff into Crimea.
Right. So just so people know, a lot has been talked about like the wetness and the weather affecting the strategic push that would go forward. And right now, is it chilly where you are? Is it cold where you are? About 50 degrees, something like that?
Considering we're in November, I mean it's very mild. I don't know the exact temperature, but I was able to walk around in a light jacket and a baseball cap today, so it's not 40, bitterly cold.
It's been 46 to 52 degrees in Las Vegas right now. And
it's comparable.
We had snow in Summerlin 2 days ago. Little pepper snow. Yeah, it's going to happen. It happens every so often. And again, like when the weather's relatively normal, we have a lot of rain here too.
You sure it's not Summerland?
Yes. In my past. Anyways, the wind is getting cold. We're going to get into it and then we'll lose ourselves. Exactly. It's my favorite song ever, so never mind. Okay, so right now it is 42 degrees. And mild, cloudy skies, not raining in Donetsk Oblast. And according to this, Sunday it will be 50 and high of 50, low of 36, and then 43. Like the coldest day is Tuesday, and then Saturday next week it'll get to 30 and 22, rainy and windy up in Donetsk. Now down in Crimea though, it stays a little bit warmer. That, I think, is the difference here. This is kind of what I'm bringing up in this, is that a lot of people are talking about taking back the eastern portions. You got to deal with winter. This is old school World War II, Germans trying to fight the Russians in the snow, blah, 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 and everybody worried about that. Never mind the fact that between drones and tanks and long artillery and HIMARS, it's not really the same war on so many fronts. They don't even have to own the sky to own the sky. It's a lot of stuff. But Crimea is warmer. Crimea, not a lot warmer, but it's not going to snow, and the rain isn't going to be really heavy in that part. So the land war aspect of taking Crimea back over the next few months is not the bum rush that you would have to do to take the eastern part, technically speaking. If they decide Kherson and then Crimea is next, that's the next big move, I think. And if they take Crimea, we're talking about a change of leadership in Russia at that point. Either the idea is that they're going to...
I just looked it up. We're 52 degrees here today.
Right.
It's evening. We're at 8:30 in the evening. It's 52 degrees here. That is incredibly mild for November in Kiev. So, yes, and you're right. The Crimea, one of Crimea's major issues has always been its water, because it doesn't... It's not. There's not a lot of precipitation on the Crimean Peninsula, so maneuver might be possible. But I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We've had a major victory here in Kherson.
Right.
They're going to have to go through a series of consolidation. They are currently going through Kherson trying to find people who were infiltrators, but not only that, they are going through Kherson looking for unexploded ordnance, for booby traps that may
They
have been
got
left
minesweepers
behind.
in, right? And they got minesweepers in the area outside the city.
Right. Again, because for a variety of different reasons, and prior to the Ukrainian army marching into Kherson proper, there was a lot of trepidation about Kherson because the Russians don't do this. They do not openly admit that they're retreating. Even when they pulled away from Kiev and Kharkiv at the beginning of the war, they said they were just reorienting their force stature, which was baloney. Of course they were retreating, but they never openly say they're retreating. This is the first time in this war that they openly said, we have to pull back, otherwise our guys are going to get slaughtered. And that's been a major effect in Russia. I think already you have been, I know already you have been seeing people openly saying that this was a mishap, this was a huge misstep, a huge mistake, and they're even starting to point the finger at Putin, which is unheard of.
Wow, it's all kind of rhymes with what's going on
with Trump
here.
Yes, it's
very
exactly right.
Similar. It's very similar. Once
their fates are aligned.
And also once if you make yourself out to be the biggest, baddest guy around and you're all puffed up, the second somebody pops a pin in that puffery, they deflate very quickly. And I don't know, but I think that I think very much like the Republicans running for the door and going, Trump who? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
There are going to be a lot of Russians who are going to be like, yeah, that Putin guy was never that good for us. We know it.
You just couldn't say anything or he'd kill you. So, but we all knew it.
Or he'd kill you, so we're all for. But we all knew it. Exactly.
Meanwhile, there's blood in the water there and here in terms of their political futures. And farewell and adieu to you, fair Spanish ladies. Yeah. It's not a good look because you have to hold on to that. And again, Xi Jinping's in the same situation. Biden is actually traveling down to China, to Indonesia, I forget, where they're having the G20, and he's having a meeting directly with Xi Jinping. And the only news about what he's talking about with him is get North Korea in line, or we're giving you more sanctions. You guys are the ones that normally keep them on a short leash, and if you don't, businesses are going to leave immediately, and TikTok is done. Forget it. By the way, in the next couple of months, whether you use TikTok or not, if you've invested in TikTok as far as your social media, outlay of whatever material you're putting out, if you're making money on there, get ready. It's going away. I'm telling you out. The FCC this week said that it is now known that they are taking European and American tracking data so they can basically track the movements of you even when the app is off on your phone. And that in and of itself is reason enough to get rid of it. Never mind the algorithm and how they mess around with elections and all that kind of stuff with it. It's ginormous and it's going away. TikTok is malware, you shouldn't have it on your kid's phone to start with. But this is interesting because Xi Jinping's having the same moment. Their economy is failing. Everybody's leaving, not just us. The European Union, even Olaf Scholz and the EU both said we've got to find other ways to supply our needs that do not involve China. They literally said those words for the first time. It's very similar to what you're hearing about Trump and what you're hearing about Putin. It's an amazing, major shift that's going on in the world right now.
Absolutely.
So,
I think we've talked about this in the past. Autocracy may have, at least for the time being, hit a high watermark, and people are pushing back.
Let's see. War Gonzo says, apparently we will leave the city no matter how painful it is to write about it now. War Gonzo is one of these mill bloggers from Russia. She's like this young, hot, influencer-looking girl. And she wears like, I've only seen a couple of pictures of her, but she wears like tank tops with like a military insignia on the front of it always. And it's like Fox and Friends putting the woman in the short skirt in the middle between the two dudes and then like keeping your eye gaze that way. Oh God! So
well, and they put out a whole bunch of videos. There's a video of a bunch of guys marching down a very narrow street in Moscow, so they look like they're more than they actually are, and they're like saying, "Let's bomb Washington," and it's just
ridiculous
of desperation.
We got to take another break. This is the quote from her.
Load of questions.
Excellent. Well, we'll bring them on the other side. On the second, when we come back from the ad, our ad break right now, but the quote from her was, "In simple terms, Kherson cannot be held with bare hands. Yes, this is a black page in the history of the Russian army, of the Russian state, a tragic page." That's one of their biggest boosters saying that out loud. We'll be back. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Yay, democracy.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back. While we're waiting with bated breath to find out what happens in New Mexico and what happens with Katie Porter's race in California and all these stuff, we have questions from our chat room for Philip, who is live in Kiev right now. He's back from Kharkiv, where he has seen some stuff firsthand, I'm sure, that will shake some people to their bones. What do you got first, Johnny Million?
Well, at the tippy top, from Twitch, Stargal46, sorry about that, Stargal, says she's so happy for the Ukraine, but she doesn't have a question. She just wanted to let you know that she was so happy.
I'm happy too.
Oh. Yep, just don't call them the Ukraine. It's Ukraine. Ukraine is a territory. Yep.
We'll let it slide today.
Yeah, we know. It's all right.
And she didn't say that, I did. All right.
We'll let it slide
Farrell
today.
Jumped the gun and said, "I know we aren't there yet." He asked this question like at 10:45 my time. But I'd like to know what Philip feels the floor is. Should Ukraine enter negotiations with Russia? Please.
Well, President Zelensky's already put out a 5-point plan that would be preconditions for talks, and that basically includes return to pre-February 24th territories, the return of basically that all Russian forces leave, that war criminals are held accountable, all of these things, and there's. I think he even said, so he did this about 2 weeks ago, by the way, when there was pressure on him.
Let me do a quick follow-up with that, because somebody did ask about...
I think actually it may have been pre-2014.
Is there a real chance of trying war criminals for the atrocity that they've committed in Ukraine? That's from Carl Alessi.
Yeah.
There's a chance. There's a chance. It's not a given, but there's a chance. But the problem is, even like the war criminals from the wars in the Balkans, the Yugoslav wars, some of them, it took them so long to get them into a cell that they pretty much they were old men and they died in captivity, spent most of their life free. But, by the time they actually were going to a court case, they were 1 foot in the grave anyhow. So are we ever going to see Putin in some sort of criminal case? I think that's pretty unlikely, but never say never. It could be a precondition that might be a great way for the Russians to actually get rid of Putin. That's just me talking off the top of my head. I got nothing to back that up with. But I think, yes, there will be those who will be held accountable for some of the things that happen here. Speaking of which, before we go to the next question, I want everybody to brace themselves. Anybody who's listening to this radio program or watching this podcast, brace yourselves. We're all jubilant right now. Everybody is happy to see Ukrainian troops inside Kherson. We are about to hear some really horrific stuff. I have no doubt. Already we're starting to hear some stuff. But when the investigators really get in there, and when the initial euphoria ebbs away, and the stories of how the resistance to Russian occupation was put down forcibly, because for months it was very public, and then it suddenly just disappeared. And there's not a doubt in my mind, but the violence and reprisal killings, and probably we will find some mass graves. We will hear horrific stories of violence, and brace yourselves. Everybody feels great right now, and I feel great too. And I don't want to give this feeling up too soon.
Yeah.
Because
I
we
don't think
should
you
be
have
rejoicing.
to. I think you can be realistic and appreciate at the same time. Right?
Yeah, no, I'm okay. I can do both. I mean, it's not that, but it's just be aware that the Russian, when Russians occupy territory, they do so with a pretty draconian hand, and we can expect to hear some very, very disturbing news coming out of Kherson when the dust settles and the jubilation goes away a little bit. But right now, today, Kherson is back in Ukrainian hands. It is hysterical to see the Russians crowing and being so upset. I mean, there's even the fact that like the Russians were saying, we didn't even want Kherson. It's such a mess because of the conflict that's been happening. We'll leave it to the Ukrainians to try and put it back together. And less than 12 hours after reclaiming Kherson, they've got internet back up with the Starlink system. People are charging their external batteries and stuff in the center of town, and they're able to phone their friends over the internet.
CNN, Sky News. CNN, Sky News, like
Alex
France
Rossi,
24.
My buddy Alex Rossi.
They're all on the ground in Kherson right now, interviewing large groups of people. I mean, it looks like they send a guy out.
Their broadcast organizations, they have satellite data feeds. They're fine. Your average personnel. But even that, actually, let's not take away from the fact that it's still amazing that the Ukrainian military was able to get an internet system up and running in less than 12 hours after reconquering Kherson. So the Russians can, they can try and say whatever they want. The Ukrainians are just outclassing them on every single level, and it's beautiful to see. It's beautiful.
Yeah, amazing. Let's grab another question. We got a couple
another
minutes
question
for this next
Still
break.
coming in here. From Francesca, a question for Philip: is Ukraine really building a wall at the Belarus border?
They're building defenses. I wouldn't say a wall. They're building up their defenses, but I don't. We'll see if that's necessary or not. No, they're not building a wall per se. No, it's not conducive. The landscape is not conducive for it anyhow.
Right.
Let's go for another one.
Eric asks, what's the latest status on reports probably Russian army, blew up the Kakhova Dam bridge in Kherson?
They put out a video showing a massive explosion on that bridge. We do know that a number of bridges across the Dnipro were blown up as the Russians were retreating. That dam, that bridge that's up near Kakhovka is really strategically important, not least of which because it's the dam. And it holds back the reservoir, and two, in many ways, that's the water resource that leads to Crimea. So it could exacerbate things in Crimea as well. Not that the Russians care a lick about any of this, but we're going to have to see what happens in the next three to 5 days, I would say, because there will be a settling down. They're going to have to consolidate their gains, the Ukrainians, and the Russians are going to have to lick their wounds and reestablish defensive lines. So right now we're in kind of a limbo situation. Let's see how things play out over the next 72 hours or so, and then we'll have a clearer idea of who is in a better strategic. Well, the Ukrainians are clearly in a better strategic position than they were, 24 hours ago. But let's see how things shake up out over the next 72 hours or so. This is definitely a change, though. This is this turn the page, new chapter in this war.
Yeah, I'm amazed at like the hoops that that Dorr and Scott Ritter. Oh my God,
please.
Scott!
Please,
well,
I haven't watched much of it.
Well, and there isn't a lot to watch, but Scott Ritter's been everywhere lately trying to, I guess, reignite this idea that everything he's said so far actually is coming true when it is absolutely not on, like, to anyone with eyeballs. It is just absurd. You know what I mean? Like, it is Baghdad Bob level stuff. Like, Scott Ritter is the Baghdad Bob, like, the assistant manager, Baghdad Bob of Russia. Like he works there. He's a volunteer Baghdad Bob for him. It's so bizarre, unless he's getting paid. I mean, I guess that's a possibility. But like I think he's just. He likes the waft of his own butt air, and therefore he just is convinced of this whole thing. But it's absurd how he's everywhere trying to hammer this. And the same thing with Dor. Like Dor's big thing is, yeah, what about the Minsk agreement? You're like, oh, you mean the forced agreement that
shut
they
up.
did it? Yeah, exactly. At gunpoint, essentially, and then didn't live up to themselves. It's a goof. It's silly.
Which was, by the way, the entire Minsk agreement was, let's just nobody do anything, and we'll kind of maybe down the road figure out kind of some special status for the Donbass. But nobody do anything. Nobody make any agreements. We'll just tacitly let the Russians own Donbass. The Minsk was a joke, even before the Russians came flooding in here. But look, the Ukrainians knew the Russians were coming. Minsk was always a bit, not a bit. Minsk was always a non-starter. At some point in the next day or so, I'll take a look deep. I'll do a deep dive into the Putin apologists and the fellow travelers that exist in the West when it comes to Russia, because I can't wait to see them try and
the grind
or try and
the grind has been happening since Kharkiv.
Dor's got that. Yeah, Dor's got that one guy who was kicked off of YouTube, young guy in L.A. I don't know his name off the top of my head, but he's fallen into Dor. And no, not Mate. He's a young guy.
The
designer suits and a bit of a bro.
Right. Larouchian.
Russia's not so bad, bro.
Yeah, he's a Lyndon LaRouche guy. He literally does all the Lyndon LaRouche gatherings, which is just amazing to me. Exactly. Like, we're talking about Lyndon LaRoucheites in 2022. But of course, if you're going to weasel into previously existing systems where the Russians can gain some toehold, it's going to be in Alex Jones's InfoWars. It's going to be in what's left of the tanky left, which is burning its own bridges as we speak today. I'm
really looking forward to seeing it.
Oh,
but
indeed.
Back in Moscow, they're freaking out. I mean, the guys who are
Solovyov.
If you haven't heard if you haven't heard Hal and I talking about Solovyov in the past, he's kind of like a mix between their Hannity and their Tucker on steroids. And he has lost his mind. He's furious. He's just livid. He put out a video this morning, probably it was Friday morning after the announcement that the Russians were going to pull back. And he was just, these guys, we got to find out who did this, who betrayed our motherland, and we're going to punish them. And, these idiots who didn't make a plan for Ukraine and clearly dropped the ball, and they need to be punished. And so he's not pointing the finger at the West right now. He's too preoccupied at punishing the people within the Russian military and the Russian establishment in his mind have betrayed the motherland. But they're all freaking out. And it is a bit of schadenfreude. I like seeing the Republicans freak out after the midterms, but I like even more watching the Russians lose it.
Yeah, well, one of the
say what you want about the Republicans, they didn't have rape squads, and they didn't they didn't kill women and children, and they didn't shoot at me.
Yes,
I take it personally when somebody shoots at me.
Yeah, I can understand that. By the way, the new line, we got to take a break.
Kill my best friend.
Right. When we come back, we'll take a couple more questions and end out the hour with Philip Ittner. Follow him on Twitter while it still exists, at Philip Ittner, 1L, 2 T's. And, of course, Johnny Million as well. I'm on there as well, at Hal Sparks. But until such time as we all, traipse over to Mastodon or Blue Sky or whatever the heck is next. But in the meantime, the current statement seems to be, and this is trying to drive the tankies in the direction of you're all playing with fire, is the world worth having if Russia ain't in it, is the story of why we should all go out as martyrs. And I got news for you. The rich oligarchs of Russia are pleasure-seeking hedonists. They're not going to die in a wall of flame just because Putin made a bad military decision. We'll be back right after this.
Let us be happy together, whether the weather is cloudy or sunny. I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky. Let us get lucky together, whether the weather is cloudy or breezy. I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. Cause isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you, chugga chugga choo choo, woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling. Let us smile together, whether the weather is cloudy or stormy. I will still be there in the morning. I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning. I hope that you like cereal.
Yeah. That song slipped out of rotation on our happy endings for a little while because of, in the Trump years a bit, and especially during COVID. And it's lovely to me that it was the introduction of Philip to the show that brought it back into its proper place because of the necessity of those kind of feelings in the face of the awful that happens around. That's these kind of situations. Like this is what we're fighting for: life, joy, fun, music, being with friends, all the stuff you hope for. The normal problems of life are sweet nectar when the world is in such turmoil caused by people who wish nothing but absolute destruction. Now, before I, eat up all the time, we have a couple more questions. Johnny Million is farmed out of the chat. While he and I wear our Vishivankas in celebration.
Looking good, and I'm just celebrating.
Right. So Simon Battle in the chat, in the YouTube chat, is asking, Phil, did they bother to booby trap anything in Kherson?
Oh, tons of stuff. I have no doubt that there's tons and tons of stuff. If they did anything, if they operated anywhere as they do normally, I mean, they do terrible stuff. They booby trap refrigerators and microwaves, anything that you have to open up. And that's clearly targeting civilians. They don't care. They commit war crimes like chewing gum. It's like breathing to them. I have no doubt, and that is why they have sent in the explosive ordnance detection teams, and they will try and clear it out of mines. They're already finding tons of mines out in actual strategic locations that are aimed at the Ukrainian armor. But I have no doubt there's stuff left there for the civilians to come across and get killed by. So I have no doubt they'll find tons of stuff. More telling, they're probably also going to find mass graves and stuff. So it's supposed to be the happy ending.
No, but again,
they are also meeting their grandmothers, guys who are liberating their own towns. How weird is that they escaped from Kherson when the invasion happened? 9 months later, they're in full uniform. Some of them were probably just university students when they left. They're in full uniform and they're coming back and they're liberating their own homes. And that's beautiful. And that I'm happy about. So there's your happy ending. Another question, Johnny, if you've got one.
Yeah.
Sure, so Karen Webster has a question about Malcolm Nance. Malcolm Nance is going to start a show to counter Bannon. Are you all going to get with him?
Yeah.
If he wants me, he hasn't said anything to me at all about it, but if he wants me, I'm there for him. Anything that the command sergeant major would like, I am there for.
Well, I'll buy him 5 shirts, and he's only got to promise to use rando military analogies for people that he's interviewing, like tip of the spear, armor-piercing shell, all that garbage that Bannon always says about people.
Good at that.
When he's trying to be macho.
Well, I'll let you in on a little secret.
Wait. Before you do that, yes, you should. But before you do that, he calls Mike Pillow an armor-piercing shell. Like, get out of here. Yeah. Stop it. Stop.
No, when Malcolm says it, he actually knows what he's talking about.
Yes, he's right. Exactly.
Okay. All right. I'm going to let the cat out of the bag here. I have an interview with Malcolm that I conducted before he left Ukraine. And
awesome.
I wanted to do a little bit of bells and whistles with it that didn't work out when I was in Kharkiv. That I won't go into because it's not necessary, but I do have it on tape. a lengthy interview that I conducted with him.
Great.
As he rotated back to the States, going through here. I did about
all kinds of auto tune on Malcolm's voice to make it seem
Yeah.
like he's singing.
That's right.
That's a great idea with a backbeat.
Exactly what I was going to do.
I'm
That's
for
exactly
it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I hope to get that. I hope that to get that up on my YouTube channel within the next few days.
Nice.
So, an exclusive interview with the one and only Malcolm Nance.
Right. And what else we got, Johnny? We got
Nacho 2.
4 minutes left.
We got 5 minutes.
I believe new to the live stream is asking, has Philip seen any of the stockpile of Molotov cocktails used?
I mean, not in a while. Because but yeah, at the very beginning, sure, they were all over the place. Yep, everybody was making them. So yeah, I saw tons of like old women making Molotov cocktails. The entire country was making them.
So also somebody with the amazing handle of eggs5 more on Twitch wants to know if the Russians have lost catastrophic casualties. Is this true? That's what the news in Russia says.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, they have. Oh, and our own forces. I mean, we've got Milley came out and said that the estimate was around 100,000 in 9 months. That's crazy. That's crazy. To lose 100,000 soldiers in roughly 10,000 soldiers a month, if not more.
Like they didn't care about.
That's unsustainable. Absolutely totally unsustainable. I wouldn't be surprised. Because I talk to guys that have been on the front lines, whether they're part of the Legion or whether they're Ukrainian soldiers, and everyone says the one thing that they just can't understand about Russian doctrine is the fact that they just throw waves and waves and waves of people, and we knock them down, and waves keep coming. They don't adjust. They just keep throwing people at it.
Depending on reports, they lost somewhere between 300 and 800 people trying to take Bakhmut on one particular attack.
Yes.
For nothing.
By using the wrong type of using the wrong type of troops as well. They were using Marines to try and take fortified positions.
I mean, it was absurd. And those are kind of important for other missions you would send them out on. They just send them running across a field into open fire because the Wagner group got a bunch of those guys. They're like, we're not going to sacrifice our own. And they basically just told them, okay, you guys attack. And they had to do it or they get shot in the back for deserting. So these guys there's a scene in, and it's real quick, there's a scene in the second to last Rambo movie where that takes place in Myanmar, in Burma. And it's something, the local, the violent extremists that run everything, they take the villagers and they make them run across a rice paddy that has a mine in it. And they shoot at their feet and to see who steps on it. Like basically it's like a game they play just to watch it happen. And one group makes it across and nobody gets killed. So they start shooting at them to run back, like come back this way then. And the people are like, no, we're not going to do it. So they just mow them all down. The difference in that is those are supposedly other villagers they have no investment in. The Russians are basically doing this with their own soldiers. That is effectively, that was the strategy in Bakhmut. Run across a minefield, and if you don't, we'll shoot you. And those are the people on your side. It's amazing to me. Okay, one last question. We got a minute. What do we have?
All right, here's a good one. It's from our mod Andrea Brower herself. I'm sorry. It's from Sweet Pea Magster from Twitch. Says, will Ukraine get their children back from Russia, and how can Russia put these children up for adoption?
I certainly hope so. I'm not incredibly hopeful. I want to be hopeful, but there's so many there's so many difficulties with that. They have been taken away from their families. They are lost in the vastness of Russia. I hope that someday that they can be recovered. And I don't want to be cynical about it, but
that will take a giant EU effort. Like they're going to have to do gene testing on people and do some sort of, after this is all over, it's going to be enormous. Thank you so much, Philip Ittner, for joining us. Thank you, Chicago. Thank you, Johnny Million. And we will see you guys. Ukraine. That's right.
Kherson is now and will ever be Ukraine.
Ukraine. That's right. And Crimea is next. I said it, and you won't say it, but I will. Okay, bye.